There are more of us than you would think at first glance. We all tend to feel that we're the only person who exists or experiences certain feelings of social anxiety, but you couldn't be more wrong. A large portion of the population would fit onto a sliding scale of social anxiety. And people with social anxiety, they're all around us. The next time you leave the house to go anywhere, whether it's the gym, the library, local shopping, or even to the post office, remember you're not alone with your feelings. Now, people with social anxiety often have feelings of low self-esteem, pain, feelings of worthlessness. You worry about the past, the present, or the future. Thoughts that the world might be better without you, depression, avoiding places, people or particular activities. They cause these levels of anxiety. And they leave you feeling isolated and alone. And, people with social anxiety often feel that they're absolutely alone with how they must feel. Imagine for a moment that someone tells you that they're suffering emotionally, that they have any of the feelings, I've just mentioned. You would naturally want to help that person and show you care. And people with social anxiety, they often carry such a burden with them. Remember, you're not alone. Choose a person in your mind. Imagine that they came to you and unburdened them, unburdened onto you all their symptoms and anxieties. You naturally want to help that person. You can help yourself, but it can be helpful to choose a person in your life to share some of your feelings with. And it doesn't mean that you have to tell them your whole story. Explaining some anxiety difficulties with another person, they can help reduce your feelings of anxiety. And that's why I always recommend, looking into therapy if you experience social anxiety. You're actually better off not alone. It sort of counterbalances how you feel. I want to talk about the inner voice of social anxiety. People with social anxiety, they often feel this strong sense of isolation. You're a valuable human being, but there's a small voice inside telling you otherwise. So I like to say to think of that small voice like a bird in a cage. Try throwing a large cloth over that cage to sort of dampen down all the noises coming from it. And every time it starts making noises, tell yourself that you're going to try and block out that bird's noises. I know this analogy is a little silly, but it can really help you when you think of your social anxiety as a thing. You'll find that over time, you may listen to this bird less, and maybe eventually, you can get to a point where you can let it go, really fly away and be out of you. So you have this inner voice. It talks all the time throughout the day. It doesn't mean that your inner voice is helpful or useful to you all the time. People with social anxiety, they have strong inner monologue, and most of the time it's negative. I've often heard people with social anxiety, and I felt this way. It's almost like looking at the world through a window, like you're on the outside looking in. And if a window is between you and the situation that you're dealing with, this would sort of be a good example. So, for example, these feelings, they're likely to have developed because of things that happened during childhood, like bullying, sibling rivalry, verbal abuse, physical abuse, just a general nervousness. It could be inherent in family history, not getting the chance to build stable and long-term relationships, even just difficult work environments or environments that you grew up in. These experiences all contribute to the development of what are called your core beliefs. And being anxious is horrible, and no one likes feeling this way. You might feel that you began to avoid the triggers for this anxiety, and that avoiding these things made you feel better in the short term. But by doing this, you're unable to achieve what you want from life, and it's making you feel worse again. So the more I avoid, the worse I feel. And believe it or not, even though there's some short-term relief in avoiding situations, it's really doing more harm than good. So you may find yourself avoiding places that cause you high levels of anxiety, and it's likely to be difficult to tell anybody else how you might be feeling. Getting out and about in your local community is likely to be a difficult experience. And people with social anxiety, they often talk about problems speaking their mind. You have a hard time speaking out from your mind. So the things we we do to try and reduce the anxiety are ultimately what keep the problem going. And there's a wide and diverse range of coping mechanisms that you can use for this, and I'm going to show you those. Um, you know, the old me, the strategy that I used was overbuying and panic buying. And shopping during a time of bad weather, I would have bought vast quantities of food in case I wouldn't be able to leave the house for a while. And this was the same, if I shopped online. The strategy wasn't helpful. It reduced my anxiety in the short term, but it raised my levels long term, because I kind of would look back and see what I was doing. So I was listening to the mutterings of this caged bird, or this anxiety inside of me. And if it was somebody's birthday, even someone I barely knew, I would make sure I bought something extremely thoughtful for them. And I'd often be left, with a feeling of being unappreciated when it wasn't reciprocated. The new me, I have a far deeper understanding of myself. People with social anxiety, they have nothing wrong with their brains. It's the effect of life and our natural panic reaction in certain situations that we need to understand. So once you understand yourself and why you feel the way you do or react the way you do, you can learn to control your symptoms of social anxiety and really become who you want to be, who you really are. And you can become that person who no longer looks through a closed window, but is on the other side in the warmth, surrounded by people who make you happy and who you feel comfortable with. And you can learn to keep your caged bird covered until its muttering can barely be heard, and finally it will fly away. I want you to check out the free video series that I have at socialanxietyfix.com right now. It's going to give you actionable exercises that you can implement within minutes to start relieving social anxiety and really making inroads to your progress away from it. So check out the free video right now, and I'll see you there. Take care. Bye.